Welcome to ScreenBlitz, the weekly film and television show dedicated to giving you all the top news, views, reviews, previews, features, opinions, and more. I'm your host, Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at _Grant Burton, or you can go to thoughtsbygrant.wordpress.com for all of my written reviews. If you're watching this on YouTube, get involved in the show, leave a comment down below, subscribe, help me get to 100 subscribers, which is my current goal, and share this across social media to help me build my audience. If you're watching this live on Twitch, you can do pretty much the same thing. Get involved in the show. At the end of the show, we have a big discussion and a hangout where we talk about all the things I've talked about today. Or you can just click follow, that would be really appreciated too. On today's show, I will be reviewing Sharp Objects, Preacher, Disenchantment, and Archer Danger Island. But that's all still to come because each and every week we start with the news. Item number 1 is from Adam Chitwood at Collider. Dwayne Johnson's Big Trouble in Little China will be a continuation, not a remake. So, Big Trouble in Little China is probably one of my favourite films of all time. I love that film. I think it's really weird and quirky and unique. And to do a continuation or a sequel rather than a remake is the smart move. There are two big concerning things here, and that is Kurt Russell and John Carpenter are not attached to this project at all at the minute. That could change when it actually gets into production, but if you don't have Kurt Russell in here, I feel like you're losing a huge element of what made the original so good. And John Carpenter is an icon. He's came back to produce the new Halloween film, so maybe they'll come back and do something in this, maybe do the soundtrack or something. It'd be nice if he does that. It'll also be interesting to see if this continuation addresses the comic books at all, because you might not know, but there is a comic book series which John Carpenter consulted on, which acts as a continuation of the original film. I've never actually read them though, although I do own the first one, I just haven't got around to reading it. So yeah, Big Trouble in Little China, glad it's not a remake. This is probably the best way you could do it, and hopefully Kurt Russell gets involved somehow. Next up, Ethan Anderton at Slash Film. Disney streaming service gets an official name and will cost less than Netflix. Bob Iger referred to the service as Disney Play, but that could change before it's released. Iger states, "We're going to walk before we run as it relates to volume of content. At the low price point, Disney will struggle making profit from the service. The studio will be losing $300 million in revenue they receive from Netflix for the exclusive streaming rights to a bunch of their titles, a deal that will be expiring soon." So, Disney Play sounds alright to me. I've got no problems with that. It seems to sum up what this is going to be. And the low price is really good, I think, because when you consider how much content it's going to have in relation to Netflix and Amazon, it is just going to be the Disney back catalogue. They are going to be introducing some new content like a Star Wars show. In fact, there's like 2 or 3 Star Wars shows going to be on there. Rumours to be some original films there as well. They're also going to be coming out with new Marvel products as well. So that's good. The low price makes perfect sense in that regard. Where it gets a little unclear and a little worrying is what happens to the Marvel content on Netflix. So Daredevil, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Are they still going to be happening on Netflix? Because we know they're not going onto this Disney service, because it's only going to have any content that's not R-rated. So if that content isn't going onto the Disney service, will it continue on Netflix? And at the same time, will it still be kind of a part of the MCU? That'll be interesting to see if that happens or not. So yeah, Disney Play meant to be coming out next year. I'm interested. Well, with all the new Star Wars content on there, I'm definitely gonna look into it. But yeah, this is all American news by the way as well, so we don't know whether this will relate to the UK at all, because the rights to the UK stuff is probably different to what it is in America. So Netflix, I don't think, has all of the Disney streaming rights here in the UK. I think Sky has some of them too. There is already a Disney streaming service in the UK as well, but I think it's much more focused on children's programming than, say, like Pirates of the Caribbean or the Marvel movies. But yeah, next item. Nelly Andreeva at Deadline says that an alien animated comedy from Rick and Morty, Duo, and 20th TV gets series order at Hulu. There's going to be 2 seasons of 16 episodes, and it's called Solar Opposites, a comedy about a family of aliens living in Middle America, and it's slated for a 2020 release. So, my initial thought when reading this was, this sounds like an animated version of Third Rock from the Sun, which is a pretty good comedy, I think. And yeah. How different is it going to be from that? Well, it's probably going to be wackier because it is animated. It's probably going to be funnier because it's a bit more modern. If you're a fan of Rick and Morty, this is probably going to be right up your alley. And yeah, 2-season order is interesting because it shows confidence in it, but maybe it's overconfidence. Maybe they've only gotten the 2 seasons because of who they are rather than because of the content they've made, because I can imagine this show's in early pre-production. It might not even have any scripts up there yet. So yeah, don't get too excited just yet for this. And it's 2 years away, so plenty of time for that. And they're still working on Rick and Morty. I know Justin Roiland gets involved with video games quite a little bit often now, so they're busy people. Next up, Dawn C. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce this name, but I'll butcher it nonetheless. Dawn C. Kimlewski from Deadline. Amazon is holding exploratory talks with major Hollywood studios about creating films for a streaming service. Sources confirmed to Deadline. The company has held preliminary discussions with Paramount and Sony and possibly others about the possibility of developing original movies for the streaming service. So, Amazon already makes movies, but unlike other streaming services like Netflix, it actually releases them in theaters first, and then it's quite a while later when they actually go onto their streaming service, Prime Video. So, is that going to change? I don't know. It's probably smarter to release them in theaters because you actually get a lot more revenue from them, I imagine, depending on how well they do. So, I think they need more investment in studios like Sony and Paramount. Those are big gets if they manage to get that, and it'll help them compete with Netflix because their Prime Video service is good, but it's not up there alongside Netflix in terms of the content and the quality of content. Although there is quite a lot of good stuff on there now. Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, for example. Just started watching Jack Ryan as well, and that looks very promising. So yeah, they need this. What I'm a little worried about is, will their feature films go straight to the service or will it go to theaters? That remains to be seen. I think it'll be smart to release them in theaters, money wise, but if you release them straight onto their Prime Video service, it will draw in a larger audience. It will convince people to come in and get there. Paramount and Sony have a lot of big franchises under their wing. They make a lot of big, good movies often, so it's a really good get for them. And if this deal does happen, to get Paramount and Sony to do this, how much content will go to Amazon? How much will still be their own thing, Paramount and Sony stuff? So yeah, there's a lot of things up in the air. We don't really know the specifics of it yet, and it is very early preliminary stuff. But it does confirm that maybe the future is indeed in streaming, and arguably the future is now. Leslie Goldberg from The Hollywood Reporter says Mr. Robot to end with Season 4 with an expanded 12-episode season. So, I never really liked Mr. Robot. I tried watching it, I watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and I just could not get into it at all. It's just something about it didn't click. I think Rami Ismail, I think his name is a good actor, but his performance just didn't work for me. I wasn't sure if it was meant to be funny, I wasn't sure if it was meant to be serious. Yeah, Mr. Robot, not for me. And the weird thing is that everyone came out raving and loving this show in this first season, then that died down big time in Season 2 onwards. So, yeah, I'm not disappointed that this is ending. I don't particularly care, to be honest. And I know people still watch this show, but yeah. 4 seasons seems fair enough. A lot of shows tend to go on a lot longer. Maybe it's a good thing to end them earlier. This is from Dave McNary at Variety. Wile E. Coyote film is in development at Warner Bros. And it's called Coyote vs. Acme. And Chris McKay, the producer, is producing the film. And if you don't know who he is, he directed the Lego Batman movie and he was involved in a bunch of other stuff. He's a good filmmaker, a good producer, so it's a really good big name to have attached to this, and it brings a lot of hope. Here's the thing though, do people still watch or care about Looney Tunes? Like, do they actually still make Looney Tunes cartoons and animated shows? Because I don't know. When I was growing up, they always were repeats and old things, so I don't know if there is any new stuff coming from this franchise or if it's been dormant for so long. I will say this though, Wile E. Coyote, one of my favourite of the Looney Tunes when I was a kid, and noticeably there's no mention of the Roadrunner in this. So is the Roadrunner going to be in this film at all? I think it would make sense to at least reference it, because Wile E. Coyote is so often associated with Roadrunner. So yeah. And this always worries me with animated films, because I remember when they done a Tom and Jerry animated movie, and all of a sudden Tom and Jerry could speak. And it was just so bizarre and odd and so like not what we wanted from a Tom and Jerry movie. They should not speak at all. So will Wile E. Coyote speak? Because I don't believe he ever speaks in the cartoons. So yeah, don't do that. Don't make him talk. But yeah, Chris McKay being attached has me a little confident about this. Final story. Emmy Rossum is leaving Shameless in season 9. So full disclosure, Shameless here in the UK, I believe we are only just on season 7. I think as of right now recording, season 7 has just been released on Netflix. So we're a little behind. And I don't think it's on any other TV channels or networks in the UK. From what I've watched of Shameless, which is the first 6 seasons, I like the show. It's a very troublesome show at times because it's basically about very likable characters who are doing horrible things. So it's really tough to watch at times. Tonally, it's all over the place. It's very serious at times. It's very funny at times. Often the humour's at the expense of someone who generally does not deserve that treatment. But yeah, it's still a pretty good show. Emmy Rossum, however you want to pronounce it, is the heart and soul of this show. She's by far the best thing about it. I think she's highly underrated in the show. It seems William H. Macy gets all the attention from this, and yeah, he's good in it, but she's really the real reason you watch it, I think. And really good performance, really good, just the main character. So to get rid of the main character is always a big risk, and I think 9 seasons is a long time for this show to go on. I've watched the first 6, and I feel like it's already dragging, and it shouldn't really be going on this long. So perhaps just end it. It really doesn't have to be 9 seasons long. It doesn't have to be going on as long as it is. But it sounds like it's going to continue without her, which is a little disappointing. So yeah, that's the news for this week. We are now moving into trailers. But before I go on to the trailers, just a reminder, subscribe to my YouTube channel, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate any support. Share this across social media, Twitter and Facebook. Help me build my audience. That's a really big ask, I know that, but if you don't like it, someone else might. And if you know someone called Mark, tell them I'm talking about him. And come check us out. But moving on to trailers now. True Detective Season 3 released a teaser trailer this week. And not a lot to go on here. It stars Mahershala Ali, so he's a really good actor. And it looks very stylish. It looks tonally more in line with the first season, which I think is a smart move because everyone loved the first season but wasn't keen on the second. So yeah, not a lot to go on. It looks very atmospheric, and hopefully this is a return to form for True Detective. Although, in all honesty, I wasn't that keen on the first season or the second season. But David Milch is attached to this, and I love his work, so maybe I'll check that out. Although I think in the end he's only actually co-wrote 1 episode. I don't know how much involvement he's actually had. But I think he was supposed to be the showrunner. The First. This is a new Hulu series starring Sean Penn. In fact, watching this trailer, there's actually quite a few familiar faces in there. It looks like it's got a good cast. But I am concerned with this show because it's not what I thought it was. This show was advertised and promoted as a science fiction show about the first expedition to Mars. And I thought, right, that's great. And it's from Bo Willimon, who done House of Cards, so double great. But the problem is that this show looks really dramatic. It looks perhaps over dramatic and melodramatic at times, and not a lot of space stuff in this. It looks like it's going to be focusing a lot more on the characters being on Earth. Maybe there's going to be like a flashback structure. Maybe it's all about building up to them leaving Earth and going to Mars. In which case, maybe season 2 or the later end of this season is actually going to be on Mars. And because of that, I'm far less interested in it. I'd much rather see them just go right from the beginning, head to Mars, go on Mars, see what happens. But it looks like it's more about leaving Earth than it is about going to Mars and what happens after that. So yeah, a little disappointed. Not sure if I'll check this out now. But yeah, wait for the reviews and see what actually this show is about. Final trailer this week is The Frontrunner. I've just watched this before the show started and it looks alright. It looks like a typical Oscar bait biopic. Hugh Jackman starring as a politician who can connect to the average person, it seems, and yeah, looks interesting, very political, looks familiar to some other biopics. I don't think it's going to be doing anything special or unique. J.K. Simmons is in there, I really like his work, but yeah, The Frontrunner might be worth checking out at some point in the future. And that's the news for this week. If you've liked what you've watched, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. But thanks for watching so far. Moving on to reviews now. I've got a lot of reviews this week, which is in stark contrast to last week when I had no reviews. Because I've got so much reviews, I haven't got a big topic this week. So let's get straight into it with Preacher Season 3. So Preacher is probably one of the weirdest shows on TV, and I could describe what happens in Preacher to someone who's not familiar with it, who's never even seen or heard of it, and you'd probably think I was joking. There's so much weird stuff going on. It's very odd, very quirky. It mixes in drama with comedy, and honestly, when it does the drama, it gets a little boring. When it does the comedy and the action, it's great. And Season 2 I thought was an improvement over Season 1, because Season 2 the characters had a clear goal and an objective, and the only problem with Season 2 really was that it was too long and it dragged a little. So they've cut down the episodes from 13 to 10 again, and the problem now is that this season is a lot more like Season 1. The characters, I honestly don't even know what the show's about anymore. I don't know what the characters are trying to do, I don't know what they're trying to achieve. And these characters are really interesting and likable, but this first half of the season, they spend so much time just arguing and hating each other and being separate from each other that it's kind of lost its charm a bit. It does, however, improve again in the second half to the point where you get some of the best episodes this show's ever done. So, yeah, on the whole, Season 3 is a little disappointing, but it is better as it goes on. And, yeah, hopefully they can course correct again in Season 4, if there is going to be a Season 4, and they can just nail down the comedy and the action, focus a bit more on that and less on the drama, which just isn't that interesting. Hopefully they can actually get a clear-cut story in there as well, because it's all feeling a little disjointed and disconnected, because the characters are all doing their own thing. You got Preacher, Dominic Cooper doing one thing over here, with characters who just aren't that interesting at all, in the location that's just bland and boring. Then halfway through the season you've got Cassidy going off, doing his own storyline, which is a bit more interesting, but it feels like it should belong in True Blood rather than in this show. It feels out of place. Then you've got Tulip, who feels really underutilized this season. She's just kind of there, bridging the gap between both sides and doing their own thing at the same time. And bizarrely, the most interesting part of this season was a storyline featuring the cowboy, Adolf Hitler. Yeah, Adolf Hitler's in this show, and a guy whose face has been blown off. And why is that so bizarre? Not because of the characters involved in it, but because they only appear in like 3 or 4 episodes of the whole season, and they're kind of glorified cameos. Well, in Season 1 and 2, they feel really tacked on at times, and they didn't really fit into the show much. This season, it still does kind of feel like that, but they've taken over. They've now got what I think is the best storyline going on. It's certainly the one which has the most comedy and the most action in there. So yeah, hopefully that's something we can. Hopefully they can keep doing that in season 4, and they can have all the characters together doing something that actually makes sense and with a clear-cut goal. Next review. Sharp Objects. Sharp Objects is a show about a journalist who is returning to her hometown to report on a recent murder, and it turns out this journalist has a troubled past, to say the least, and she's got a bit of a reputation. You don't really know why at first, but you find out eventually, and she's ostracized by everyone in this society, and everyone in this town is a little odd and unusual in a way. They're still believable, it's just they've got their own ways and traditions which aren't quite like some other places you might know of. And just to sum it up, Sharp Objects is great. I would say it's a must-watch, definitely. It's a really good show. It's pretty slow at times. There are some episodes that seemingly go nowhere, but one of the good things about the show is that it plants little bits of information and little details here and there, and it's really smart about doing it subtly, and it's never on the nose. It always feels just natural and perfect the way it does it. So even the episodes where there's seemingly nothing going on, there's actually quite a lot to pick up on if you care to pay that much attention. So it's really well done that way on. The acting is brilliant. Amy Adams and Patricia Clarkson are definitely going to get some big award attention next year. There's another actress, I don't know her name, but she plays Amma, I think her name is. She's the little girl in the picture there, whose head's half chopped off. She's really good. Yeah, I could really single out a lot of the cast members, but it's really well acted, really well written, very atmospheric. There's a constant sense of unease and tension throughout the show. It really does a good job at keeping you guessing and wanting to predict who's the killer, who's this, how are these related, and so on and so forth. So yeah, really check this out. And just before I move on, I want to talk a little about the ending, because about 3 or 4 episodes before the ending, I made a prediction about something in this show, and I was right. I predicted the ending, but it didn't happen the way I thought it would, and despite the fact that I predicted it, the show really done a good job at making me second guess my prediction. Heading into the finale, I was like, no, I think I'm wrong now. No, that's obviously not going to happen. But no, I was right all along, and I'm not just gloating about that, although that is something I'm pretty proud of, that I was right. But the show just does a really good job at making you guess everything, and even though I was right, the way that it was revealed was shocking and surprising nonetheless. My jaw was literally on the floor when it happened, and this is one of the best endings to a TV show I have ever seen. And yeah, just make sure you stick for the end credits and the final episode if you're going to check it out. I do recommend you check it out as well. It's a must watch, definitely. So yeah, that's Sharp Objects, probably one of the best TV shows this year. Disenchantment Season 1. Now, I say it's Disenchantment Season 1. On Netflix, it actually says it's Part 1, but everywhere else I've looked, it's just Season 1. So I don't know if it's a season, I don't know if it's a part, I don't know when Part 2 is coming out. Yeah, Netflix really changing up the TV game, I don't even know what to call this anymore. So, this is from Matt Groening, who done The Simpsons and Futurama. I don't really want to compare it to The Simpsons and Futurama too much, but I think I have to. If you're a fan of The Simpsons and Futurama, you're going to be disappointed by this. Yeah, it's got the same animation style, the animation's great, voice acting's brilliant, the main character and one of the supporting characters here, who is the king, they are both really good. You'll recognise some of the voices from Futurama and The Simpsons, but the big problem with this show is that it's not that funny. It's got a different storytelling method than The Simpsons and Futurama. While Futurama and The Simpsons were much more procedural in nature, in that they had single episodes focused on one adventure, then the next one was completely different. This one has an ongoing story, so the events of episode 1 carry on to episode 2 and are then referenced later on in the season, so on and so forth. There are also some procedural elements here and there, but you really do have to watch this from the start and keep watching it in order to make sense of everything that's going on. So, yeah, the humor of it. I think one of the problems with the humor is that a lot of it's just old hat stuff. It's not anything unique or special. There's nothing really surprising that makes you really laugh out loud or bust a gut. And the episodes are long. Some of them are about half an hour long. If you compare them to The Simpsons and Futurama, they're only 20 minutes long. I think if you cut out a lot of these episodes, because they are overly long, I think they'd be paced a lot better, and I think the humour would work a lot more because it would be much tighter and closer together. And I think that would really affect the reception and how well the jokes are working, but that doesn't happen. So I will say this though before I finish. It does get better as it goes along, and the story is genuinely pretty interesting. So if you can overlook the fact that it's not the funniest thing ever, it's still worth a look in, and I would recommend you give it a go. So yeah, Disenchantment, a little disappointing, but not bad by any means. Final review is Archer Danger Island, or Season 9, whichever one you want to call it. And I'm going to get the positives out of the way first. It's a very funny show. The animation is very unique. I really like the animation of this because it mixes in CGI with hand-drawn stuff, and the actual style of it. The backgrounds are really detailed and intricate. The characters really stand out from the backgrounds. It's really well done. It looks very gorgeous at times. And it's still a very funny show, despite the fact that it's gone on for 9 seasons and the characters are kind of repeating themselves at times. Also, the voice acting, brilliant again. I really can't fault any of the voice actors in this show. So let's get on to the negatives here, because even though this is still a really good show and I really like it, it has gone on for 9 seasons now, and it needs to end because it's kind of losing the plot. Let's go back to Season 7 and how that ended, so slight spoilers if you've never watched Archer. Season 7 ended with Archer falling into a coma, and that's literally where we've left it off. We're in Season 9 now, we still don't know what the hell happened after that, because Season 8 and 9 are in his mind. He's dreaming all of this, so none of this is relevant or important as far as I'm aware, and there's not even a single mention of him being in a coma in this season, so you might even forget that. And it looks like Season 10, which I think is meant to be the final season, isn't going to address that at the beginning at least. I don't want to spoil it or anything, but it looks like it's going to do a similar thing that it's done with Season 8 and 9. But that's not to say that what's happened in Season 8 and 9 is bad, because it's really allowed them to do different things and it's really interesting and fun, but it does feel like it's gone off track a bit and it needs to gear it in and get back to it being a spy comedy show, which is what it originally was. So yeah, I feel like it's lost its focus a bit, but it's still really good, and yeah, I would recommend it if you're an Archer fan, because there are some really good moments in this season. Sometimes it does get a bit silly, but yeah, that's a really minor quibble, and it's kind of what you expect from a show like this. And that's reviews. If you've liked what you've seen, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to me on YouTube, give me a follow on Twitch, get involved in the chat. I'll have a little hangout after the show if anyone's there, although I might be having problems streaming, but I'm not too sure. And yeah, I'm Grant Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at _GrantBurton, or you can go to forcebygrant.wordpress.com for all of my written reviews. I did write a review of Sharp Objects, so check that out if you want more details. And just so you know, I think I'm a far better writer than I am a talker, so the review might make a bit more sense, but I don't know. Before I end the show, I've just got a couple of little things I want to address. A few weeks ago I done a topic on the next James Bond, and I'll admit it, I put that together last minute because the news about Idris Elba broke on the Friday. I record this on a Saturday morning, and I just thought it would be a good topic, but I didn't really put the amount of work and effort into it that I would have liked to have. So I missed something, and in that topic I talked about what I would do for the next James Bond, which is to set it in the 60s, have a female James Bond, and I suggested Natalie Dormer as the role. I still stand by all of that. I think Natalie Dormer would be great in that. I think it would be really interesting to do a female Bond in the 60s, to address things like gender politics and so on. But I just want to throw another name into this as a potential James Bond, one that I think would actually be better than Natalie Dormer, and that's Vanessa Kirby. I've spoke about her in the past. I think she would be brilliant as a female James Bond, and not sure if she would do it because of her relationship in Mission Impossible Fallout, which is a spy series as well. Maybe she doesn't want to be typecast as something like that. But yeah, really good actress. She'd really do a good job as James Bond. Next thing I want to address is this week they announced the release date and details of the DC streaming service called DC Universe, and it comes out in September. I think it's the 15th, and I think it's just in the US so far. So yeah, just be aware of that if you're a big DC fan. But yeah, I'm not hyped about this at all. Titans does not look good. I'm not that interested in the comic book stuff that they're doing because they're only releasing a few comic books at a time, it seems. And some of the other content isn't coming out till 2019 and beyond. And yeah, not sure how many people are going to be jumping onto this. Keeping with DC though, the final thing I want to talk about is Alec Baldwin being cast and then dropping out of the Joker movie starring Joaquin Phoenix. So they wanted him to play Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, and they wanted to do a really weird and bizarre take on it by having him be a Donald Trump-like character. So I completely understand why Alec Baldwin didn't want to do this. In recent years, he's famously portrayed Donald Trump on Saturday Night Live, doing a pretty good impression of him. It's really quite funny. And yeah, I don't blame him at all for not wanting to do that in a film, because you don't want to be known so much for being a Donald Trump impersonator, especially when you're an actor of the caliber of Alec Baldwin. So yeah, not surprised by this at all. And he has a suggestion. Instead of doing a Joker movie, which will probably ruin the character by getting rid of all of the mystique surrounding that character, regardless of how good an actor Joaquin Phoenix is, regardless of all the big names like Robert De Niro being attached to this film, why don't you just go and do a Batman movie? A one that everyone wants. Everyone wants this Batman movie. The one being written and directed by Matt Reeves, and who knows who it's starring. Just get Ben Affleck on the phone, ask him if he's going to do it, and get this movie into production, because it's all anyone really wants. It's something that should have happened quite a while ago. They probably should have done it before Batman v Superman. And it's getting a little silly now how long it's taken them to do a Batman movie in this universe. There's also the problem with that this Joker movie is not connected to this universe at all. It's its own thing. That's going to confuse a lot of people depending on how they market it, because we already have a Joker in this universe, and yeah, it's Jared Leto and he's crap as the Joker, but still, it's going to cause some confusion. But yeah, I'm getting a bit into a rant because I'm really not happy with the DC EU. I can't remember what the official name is that they gave it, but it was something silly. But yeah, if you've enjoyed watching this, I'm Grant Burton. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton, or go to forcedbygrant.wordpress.com for all my written reviews. I wrote a review of Sharp Objects this week, so check that out. And on YouTube, subscribe to my channel. I'm aiming for 100 subscribers at first. I'm slowly getting there. Hopefully I can get there in the end. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. If you're watching this on Twitch, follow my channel and get involved in the chat. I'm about to do a post show if anyone's there, and I don't know if this is streaming very well at all. I'm not getting any details on my phone at the minute, so I think something might be up. But yeah, until next time, I'm Grant Burton. Hope you've enjoyed it, but I'm out.